Hey there, little Red Riding Hood, you sure are looking good. You're everything a big bad wolf could want.
She was told not to go into the woods. She had a picnic basket and a beautiful red cape. And out she went into the woods, I think very bravely too, to discover what the mystery was behind the trees in the woods and what really frightened her mother.
So I'm going to have you tell the Little Red Riding Hood story any way that you like, but imagine this time that Little Red Riding Hood is 23 years old. So anytime you're ready,
and
just start.
And I can make it up?
You can absolutely make it up, as long as it's the Little Red Riding Hood story. As long as it makes sense to you, it's at age 23.
Okay, so Red was walking down the street, and she got a phone call on her cellular phone from her mother. And her mom said, listen, your grandmother isn't feeling well, so what I want you to do is I want you to bring her a basket of food. And Red said, well, Mom, I'm out club hopping, and I'm really having a good time with my buds, and why does Grandma need me to always bring the basket? Why can't you bring her the basket? And her mom said, listen, Red, sweetheart, if you're on Hollywood Boulevard or Sunset Boulevard on a Saturday night, it's really dangerous now. It's not like it was in the old days. It's like a jungle. It's like a forest. There are people there that you just don't know anything about. And Red said, Mom, just leave me alone. You know what I'm doing. I'm going to go to this club. I'm going to dance. I'm going to play. For God's sakes, why do you have to always be nagging me about this or that or Grandma or Grandpa or whatever? Mom said, okay, sweetie, I understand, but could you just stop by the house first before you go to the clubs? So Red said, sure. She said, all right, I'll go by. Oh, sure, Mom, I'll please you. She went by the house, she picked up the basket of food for her grandma, but on her way, she saw the coolest car on Sunset Boulevard. I mean, it was stunning. It was a yellow Ford, and it was beautiful. And in this Ford sat a guy who looked kind of like, I don't know, Sly from Sly and Sylvester and the Family Stone. I mean, he was very hip. Or maybe looked like Sting. I don't know. It just depends on the mood you're in. But he was this beautiful-looking man. He was sitting in this Ford, and he said, babe, where are you going? And she said, well, I'm going to my grandma's house because she's not feeling well. And he said, hey, I got a party up right here on Mulholland. Beautiful house, lights. Everybody's going to be there. Jack Nicholson, Angela, Jolie, Brad Pitt. Come on to my house, babe. And you are the cutest little thing that I ever saw. And she leaned into his yellow car, and he smelled so good. Oh, he smelled delicious. And he had beautiful blonde hair, big blue eyes. He was gorgeous. She said, well, okay, let me think about it, but I really have to get this basket to Grandma's house. He said, well, okay, if you're going to use Grandma over a great time, I mean, you could always go to the party and then go to your grandmother's house and bring her the food. Red thought about it for a while, and she thought, I really would like to know this guy. So she got in the car and she drove with him, and she went up to this amazing mansion, and he opened the door and she walked in and had a 365-degree view of all of Hollywood, but no one was there. And she really panicked, and she said, listen, I'm so scared. Just do me a favor. My grandmother lives at 1343 Sycamore Street, and I've got to get this stuff to her. Is there any possibility that you could drive me there? And the guy said, listen, I got to make a call, but I promise I'll drive you there. And Red waited and waited and waited, and an hour went by, and he was nowhere to be found. So she really panicked, and she called a taxi from this man's beautiful mansion, and the taxi picked her up, and thank goodness she was able to remember the address, and she immediately took that taxi over to her grandmother's house because she really didn't want to be stranded there, and it was a jungle, it was a forest where she was. And she got to her grandmother's house, and she looked at her grandmother, and her grandmother didn't look like herself because her grandmother had this beautiful hair and these beautiful blue eyes, just like the guy in the yellow cord. And she said, Grandma, are you okay? Grandma said, I can't hear you. Could you come a little closer? She said, Grandma, seriously, are you all right? I thought your eyes were green. She said, honey, please, just a little bit closer. And Red leaned right into her face, and she said, Grandma, I'm very nervous about you. Mom said you were sick. And with that, this man put his arms out, and the wig fell off, and the grandmother's clothes fell off, and he grabbed her and he thrust her chest against his chest, and he said, I've been waiting for a virgin like you all my life. And she struggled and she struggled, and she finally pushed herself away, and she heard this thumping in the closet, and she opened up the closet, and her grandmother was there, and her grandmother had a broom, and she smacked that man right across his head, whacked his brains good and plenty. She said, don't you ever fool with my granddaughter who's a virgin ever again, or any other virgin. You get out of my house. And the wolf left. Well, he called himself Wolfie, but Wolfie left, which I forgot to tell you was his name. And he left, and Grandma hugged Red, and she said, you know, honey, whatever you decide to do in your life, I give you total permission, because your mom and I so love you so very much, and we'll never judge you, but just do me one favor. If you go into the forest, be able to discover the wolves that lurk there.